You're listening to Our Daily Show with CJ Nasello on RiverBender.com. Texters on my darn text line. You know what happens, John? I got a bunch of texters got in my head. I said, well, John's never late, and I knew you'd be here. And they said, well, what if he's ducking you? And I went, don't you get in my head, texters. He's coming. And the alderman for the 5th Ward, one of my favorite people, John Meehan, is in studio. And, John, I want to start off the interview just by saying in about a year you've been in office now.
Yes, a year this month.
I'm a big fan of what you do. I think you're a wonderful man. And are you going to plan on doing this again?
I'm anticipating right now. I do plan on running for the 5th Ward position come next April. Yes. Yeah.
And what are the kind of the qualifying factors? What are some of those nuances that are leading to that decision of let's do this again?
Well, I don't know. I was appointed by Charlie Brake, appointed by the mayor, but Charlie Brake asked that I would take his position, and I've been there in a year. That was my job to finish out his term, which ends next April.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, let's give it a run then. I like to run and be 4 more years. It is somewhat time consuming, and you're committed to those meetings, those 2 meetings on the 2nd and the 4th weeks of the month. And when you're planning trips away, I'm retired. I want to get away. You have to plan your schedule a little bit more.
Well, that's a good point, too, because you guys work throughout the week, and you're getting your phone dinging at 9 o'clock at night, some nights, 10 o'clock.
Sometimes, usually not at the evening time, but quite often in the morning I'll get calls.
And, the public, though, doesn't realize that, you guys get a stipend, but it's not a career, at all.
No, we do get a stipend, but some days nothing happens at all, and you're just happy. But when I drive around the ward, I'm checking out things, checking if there's junk in the street, I'm checking for concerns that people have with the streets, for potholes and things, and just a lot of things. This time of year, checking for lawn. It's been a hassle because of the weather sometimes, but come on, folks, when your lawn is a foot tall, it's not time for you to get the lawnmower out there.
Well, and what I think is really unique about your perspective, too, is you're someone ever since I've known you 5 years ago when I first bumped into you in public, you're someone who's an avid history lover and loves the local history and the nuances to it. And I think it's great that there's a champion of that. Take me through how important local history is and why you want to kind of protect that and what you're doing in the 5th Ward.
Oh, my goodness. I've done Vintage Voices before, which is a good thing at the city cemetery where we portray interesting and famous people from Alton. Mm-hmm. Then I portray Benjamin Godfrey officially as his portrayer, and then I do Elijah Lovejoy. But I think it's so important for people to understand, or at least have a sense of where the history is for the city of Alton. One of the most interesting things I found out that in the 1830 census, which was the 4th census demanded by the Constitution, the population of Alton, 1830, was 2,100 people. And the same year, 1830, Chicago was 300. So, in other words, at one time, Alton had 7 times the population of Chicago. It's hard to imagine that. And it's all linked to history and the way the state was formed and the personages that helped form our state. Yep. All of them are gone now, as we will all be in time. But I think it's important to have a sense where we came from and where we are going.
Well, and how important is it to be a good steward of that as well, for generations going forward?
Well, I think, Alton has so much significant history, and a lot of it is tied up into buildings, and I think we should try to preserve as much as we can. Of course, our population has dropped over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
But still, there are significant buildings, and you like to preserve them because it's part of our. It's like a beautiful set of teeth. If you knock out one tooth in the back, it's not too bad. But when you start knocking out more and more teeth on that top row of teeth, pretty soon you don't have any teeth, or you have not a very good smile. So I think you equate the city and its buildings and its history like a smile. You want a good smile, and you want to maintain that.
Absolutely. And now, just getting back to the year as the 5th Ward Alderman,
right.
Take me through how you've adapted very quickly to the workings of City Council.
Well, that is very interesting because you kind of I'm chairman of a board of a small credit union, so I'm familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, and I conduct meetings, but the city meetings are a little bit different, and you're trying to figure out, differences between resolutions and ordinances and what you can do and what votes count, what votes don't, and then our main goal as the City Council, the 7 of us, is to work with the mayor. We're not when I was interviewed by the mayor before I was appointed, I told him, I said, we might differ on things, but our goal is the same, know. And that's where the city council, you can't come in with an attitude that, no, I'm coming with an attitude that I'm here to help with the other 6 aldermen. And sometimes I find myself voting for something that I myself do not agree in, but I have to go along with my constituents. And that's some votes come up like that.
Well, and that's very important. And that's honestly, John, the first time I've heard someone honestly say that is I'm voting for something that I personally am kind of, I'm not.
I have reservations about, or I don't feel comfortable. But
it's not about you. It's about the ward.
Right. It's about the ward, the people.
That's and something you hit on that I think is really important is, turn on any national television right now, and even before Saturday, turn it on 4 years ago. The division's terrible. It's important to be a good unit, a good front, for a good message for the city and its residents whenever you're out in council. And you hear people sometimes going, well, how come the aldermen aren't calling this out in city council meetings? Why aren't they doing this in city council? Why aren't they making a stand? Is that the proper place for it?
Well, I think there's times when the city council come together and where there's time for discussion, and I think that's the time when things should be made pointed out by a city council person or the mayor. So that, I think we do that.
Yeah.
It's not like a nasty bad laundry or something.
Right.
It's something where something's come up within the city that has to be voted on, and we have to discuss it and let's see what's going on.
And that's what I wanted to touch on, because it seems like you guys do have discussions, but they just aren't in front of the public because why does the public need to hear every reason why you're disagreeing on something or why? And I think it's a good message for the city that we're united. Going forward and just looking back too at the same time, what are you most proud of in this year that you've been in office?
I guess that I was able to make it through 1 year.
I love it.
1 year where I don't think I made any big mistakes. I did do something. I was called, but I think just trying to before the meetings, we were given a lot of information or emailed all kinds of the agenda, and there's a lot of reading. Sometimes the reading is repetitive. There's certain things, so I could avoid that. But there's a lot of reading, and you have to have a sense of where the direction of the meetings can go to, and you kind of decide in your own mind where you think there could be some concerns brought up by other council members and the mayor. So that's a real learning. There's a learning curve, and you have to be efficient with your reading skills and time.
And that's what I think is really interesting too, because a lot of it is just coming down to reading, and you see a lot of, and I'm not saying you guys at all, but just in general, councils across the country slip up sometimes because of the misread line, or a word that was misread in an ordinance. And that's really important. How long does it take you to prepare for, council meetings like that?
It's hard to say. It depends on how much stuff has been repeated in the agenda, and then you skip over that. But there is preparation time. I think, you usually get that information 2-3 days beforehand, so you have some time to look it over.
Yeah. And now, what's currently right now in the 5th Ward? What's the biggest issue that's facing the district there?
Oh, I don't know. I think the city. There's certain things that come up to quite often. The street repairs. Sometimes we have a lot of streets, a lot of old streets, and a lot of if I'm not mistaken, I believe Alton was the first city in the state of Illinois to be completely all the streets and alleys were covered with bricks and things.
Wow.
But then when those they don't fail, they last forever. But then when you cover them with asphalt and there's a heavy rain in December, and that water gets underneath that 1.5 inches of asphalt, and then it freezes. I mean, when it gets down to like 2 degrees or 10 degrees, like last December, that causes stress in the asphalt.
And it pops it. Yeah.
But another thing, there are 7 wards in the city of Alton, and we try to respect all the wards as equal to each other. And there's a balance of what services can be provided. We can't serve everything. We can't do everything. It's impossible. So we try to. The streets department in particular, Mike Parsons, an excellent fellow, tries to get around to the different wards and talk with the aldermen and try to hit on those things that are most important. And it always bothers me when sometimes it never happens with an alderman, but you'll get some people in the ward saying not that their ward is better, but they'll say a negative thing about another ward, and I think that's most inappropriate. Of course, as alderman, when I'm listening to a comment like that, my job is not to confront that person. I think, well, that's not really the best way to look at things, because there's an equality to all the wards, and we have fine people living all through the city of Alton, and the city tries to meet the needs of all those people. Can we do it all? No.
No,
do it all?
and that's a good point too. And I think character aside, character should never be brought into anything because we're talking politics, and politics should never be personal. It should be about the point of order. What are we working on? What are our differences? How can we still get to that same end point? And you're 100% right. Now, with that being said, streets are a major issue right now, and a lot of overgrown properties that are being brought up. Is there anything, in your opinion, that maybe could be streamlined in regards to maybe city council and the street department?
Oh, I don't know. I would talk to Mike Parsons one time. SIUE is at a campus in Edwardsville. And it is the largest campus, I believe, in the United States as far as acreage. It's huge.
Yeah, oh, it's massive.
And at one time, the state of Illinois used to maintain all those grass areas, cut. And then they got severe cutbacks from the state of Illinois for funding, and they were unable to manage all that property. So what they started doing was cutting from the curb, let's say where the grass starts, maybe 10, 15, 20 feet into the lot. Mm-hmm. So there's a manicured look about it, and the rest goes back to nature, okay?
Yeah.
I think that, and I suggested that to Mike Parsons, and he was positive in receiving that. And if you look, I can point out certain areas where I know, and I've asked to be cut, and they cut from the curb about 5-6 feet in, and it's wild on the other side, so the moose and the antelope can play, but it's cut, it's maintained, and and they spray and things like that. So
it's a great answer, John. Seriously,
especially these months. You can't. If someone takes care of their lawn, they know how hectic it can be this time of year, especially when there's some rain, then there's pouring rain, and trying to keep up just with your little God's acre. But when you're the city responsible for so many acres, you try to hit as much as you can.
And now, with that being said, we got a couple of minutes because Alderman Meehan has to get down the road to Gordon Moore Park.
Well, I have to go down to the boat. I'm giving tours.
Oh, you're doing tours today.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm doing tours.
But before I do let you go, obviously a major press conference happening in about 20 minutes time with this sinkhole, and obviously my family's history out there and building up the soccer program. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of history, a lot of local roots, and a lot of hard work and volunteerism that was pulled out on that field.
Gordon Moore Park is a premier park. In fact, on the tours that when the boats that dock here in Alton, they take them out to Gordon Moore Park, and I did that park, and I was at, well, why are we doing this? And then, holy smokes, it's one of the premier parks, city parks in the whole Midwest. Yeah. And with the golf course designed by Arnold Palmer and all the facilities out there, it's really wonderful. Our park system is quite stellar, I think, for the size of our community.
Oh, it is. And just touching on that, and something, like I said, I hold near and dear to my heart because of just the decades we put out there. Right now, there's a kind of a concern that came out, and I'm just curious, with this PR firm consultation thing with the mining company in the city of Alton, is that an issue in your opinion that came out in the Telegraph a few days ago?
Well, I think they're trying to decide what they need to do to secure the park. They want it to be a safe area for all the populations that use that, be you playing soccer or softball or golfing. And I think they're trying to consult firms that have a history of work and they know what to say and do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's where our city officials have to. They're not in a way experts, but they have to bring in experts. So I hopefully in time it'll work itself out because the value of Gordon Moore Park to the city of Alton is just it's phenomenal.
And honestly, thank you for answering, and thank you as a great answer. And now on top of that too, what's your messages for the residents as they're waiting? Because like I said, John, I'm not making this about us, but when Grandpa started soccer in Alton 40 years ago, and that field is being built up, and not just for soccer, but you got everybody in town that volunteered and put their heart into it. There's a lot of people hurt by the sinkhole, and
oh my gosh,
and
yeah,
just upset.
There's city revenues that are lost too, and there's so many good people. For example, the River Dragons, which is I found them. I go to those games. What fun, folks! If you haven't gone to a River Dragons game, go to it. They're
they got
very
a hell of a
priced,
PA announcer.
It's wonderful, and but they're just one concern. But we want to get that. I'll use the word online. We want to get the park online as soon as we can, at least areas of it. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed and toes that we could do that.
You know what? I really appreciate that answer, Alderman Meehan. And now going forward, what is your goal for the 5th Ward? Is there anything that you're looking to do before April, or are you just going to keep meeting with residents and seeing how you can help on that end of things?
It's really interesting. You get a lot of calls, and I have found myself on many front porches. Honestly, it's the most wonderful thing because you get know a new person, a new friend in the community that you never knew before. And most people are so responsive to you. I had a call one time and about a street light they wanted in the street, and the lady called me, and I was on her front porch calling her back in 20 minutes, and she about fell over. She said, "I've called the city 9 times, and I called you, and you're on my porch within 20 minutes," and that made me feel good. And when I went down to the mayor's office the next day or couple of days later, apparently the person had called in and said, "Man, this Mr. Meehan guy, he's the," and I thought, well, thanks,
Yeah.
thanks. And when the alderman is elected, don't congratulate them, thank them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because all 7 aldermen, you might disagree with some of them sometimes, but you respect them for what they're trying to do for the city of Alton.
Well, and that's a good point. And, and something that hasn't been talked about in a long time. People disagree all the time on things. And any time that people watch my show, they know that I have different thoughts, but it's not about disagreeing. It's about attacking. And whenever you go into, situations and discourse in a way that's derogatory and that's, pushes people into a corner, you can't grow as a team. Right. And, what's your thoughts just on that topic alone, on how maybe the dialogue could change a little bit for the betterment of some of these projects that we need to start working on with still being vetted by the public's curious eye?
I think it's always a positive thing to look for the positive things that are said.
Yep.
I think it's good to look at, on the positive side, that things can be worked out. We have our differences, and there is a way out. It might not be perfect for everyone, but I think to have that attitude, and even if you are, let's say, on the losing side, whatever that means, because if you are for the city of Alton,
it's a win.
It's a win.
Yeah.
That's our goal.
Yeah.
So you try to compromise and talk, be respectful, and that makes meetings and more of a kind of a enjoyable event where we discuss and dialogue between ourselves and the city.
Well, and you know what, folks? That's why I told you. Whenever I was waiting for him, like, man, I hope something didn't happen, because every time I ask John a question, it's never I'm not going to answer it. You always answer every single one of them.
I try. I really do.
But you know what? I appreciate that you don't beat around the bush and you give me your thoughts. You always have, and I really do appreciate that. Going forward, as the year starts to build up a little bit as we head into April, feel free to come back at any time.
Yes, I would like to.
Fill us in on what you're doing. Yeah. I think you're doing a darn good job, and you're a good man. So thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me here today.
9:45, a little bit of change on this Tuesday morning. It's a stormy Tuesday. You guys still do those with all the storms?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Come rain or shine.
Just like the mailman,
Yep.
We'll take a quick break at 9:45. We'll come back, chat for a little bit, and then we will switch gears and head on over to Gordon Moore Community Park for the press conference after this on Riverbender.